In the previous video, I had told you about how digestion of food occurs. Complete digestion of food occurs in the small intestine. Now, small intestine, the second part of the first part is the duodenum, where I have told you how the bile released by the liver and the pancreatic juice, which is secreted by pancreas, how these enzymes present in these juices work on the food and digest the food. In the second part of the small intestine over here, the food is completely digested, and now in the third part of the small intestine, the absorption of food occurs. Now, the small intestine, let us know how the small intestine is designed to be an ideal site for absorption of digested food. Now, if suppose a section of this is taken, internal view, if you see the internal view of the small intestine, let us see how does it look like. This is a part of the small intestine. Externally it's like a tube, it's the outer wall is smooth, but internally what you find is the inner wall of the small intestine is highly folded into such finger like projections. These finger like projections are called as villi, which increases the total surface area for absorption of digested food. Had the surface been smooth, like this, had the surface of inner wall of the small intestine had been smooth, then the total surface area would have been lesser. Food is present, digested food is present in this cavity. From here it has to be absorbed into the it has to be absorbed into the blood, present in the blood vessels present in a small intestine. So in order to increase the total surface area for absorption of food, you find there are lots of villi present. And villi, it is an ideal site for absorption because of certain reasons. First reason is that they are finger like projections, so they increase the surface area. Second reason is that each villi, if you see here, this is a single villus, plural is villi and singular is villus. So each villus is lined by just a single layer of cell. This is just a single layer of cell. The wall is very thin. Try to recall, you have learned about the epithelial tissue, that the epithelium may be either simple or stratified. Here there's simple epithelium, simple columnar epithelium that makes the inner wall of small intestine, or the wall of the villus, right? And apart from this, apart from the fact that this villus is thin walled, it is richly supplied with blood capillaries. There's a network of blood capillaries. These red lines and the blue lines that you see, this forms a network. The blood is brought by the arteries. When the artery sends off a branch in the villus, and there it forms a network, and finally the capillaries join together and finally join the vein. So each villus is provided with this a network of capillaries, so that once the digested food over here, if you take it entire as the inner cavity of the small intestine, you'll find there'll be glucose present over here, you'll have amino acids, there'll be fatty acids, glycerol. So these things are to be absorbed. So because of this thin wall and the presence of the network of capillaries, you find that this makes the villus an ideal site for absorption. So food, after being digested, when it comes over here, it will be absorbed by these villus. Okay, so the wall of the villi, since it's single layer, will be absorbed internally. I said you there is a network of capillary present. So finally this digested food is absorbed into the villi, and then from here it will be the blood, as you can see here. So these amino acids, glucose will be absorbed, and finally they are taken by these blood vessels to different parts of the body. You can also see there's another vessel present which is green in color. This vessel is called, it's this vessel which is present in the villus, this is called as lacteal. This is called as lacteal. Okay, so this lacteal is a branch of lymph vessels. Like you'll be learning in the transportation topic that apart from blood vessels which are present, our body also has got lymph vessels. The blood vessels carry blood, whereas these lymph vessels, they carry lymph. So this lacteal, there's a lymph capillary called as lacteal, which is also present in the villus. Now, when the digested food is being absorbed, glucose and amino acids will be glucose and amino acids will be absorbed by the blood capillary, whereas digested fat, that is fatty acids and glycerol, will be absorbed by the lacteal. And finally, these digested food substances will be taken to the different parts of the body. It will reach each and every cell of our body where it will be utilized. As already discussed, that after the next step after absorption is assimilation. So assimilation occurs in the body parts, in the body cells. So once the food has been absorbed into the blood like into the like it has passed through the villas, has gone into the blood capillaries and the blood vessels finally will take these things to the cells, and there inside in the body cells and the body parts, these food materials will be used up either for getting energy or for repair and replacement or for growth and development. This utilization of food for various purposes is what is called as assimilation. So once the food has been used up and has been absorbed, what will be left in the small intestine will be the undigested food along with water. So from here, from this small intestine now, the undigested food with excess of water now moves into the next part of the digestive tract, which is called as the large intestine. This large intestine has got three important parts. The large intestine, this is the structure of the large intestine. This is the place where the small intestine, the last part of the small intestine, which is called as ileum. It's called as a ileum. So the last part of the alimentary canal is the large intestine. This is the place where the small intestine joins the large intestine. So here the last part of the small intestine is called as the ileum, where absorption occurs and absorption of digested food occurs. And undigested food with excess of water goes into the large intestine, which has got three parts. The first part is called as the cecum, which has got no function to perform in case of human beings. As at this junction of cecum and the small intestine, you also find there's a blind pouch present, which is called as vermiform appendix. This is a vestigial organ. In the chapter heredity and evolution, you'll be learning about this. This is a vestigial organ, so it has got no function in our body. Many times this appendix gets inflamed, and this condition where the appendix gets inflamed, that is called as appendicitis. So that happens. Okay, so cecum is the first part of the large intestine, then you've got the colon, and finally the rectum. So in this colon part, which is ascending, transverse and descending, in the colon part, when the food enters, undigested food enters, the excess of water which is present in the undigested food will be absorbed by the walls of the large intestine. Again, if a section of this is taken and seen, there again you will find such villi present. So they absorb the water which is present in the undigested food, and finally as the food moves down, this will be again through peristalsis. I've already told you that's a wave of contraction and relaxation that pushes the food down. So through peristalsis the food will move down, that undigested food will move down, and as it moves down, water will be absorbed, and finally the undigested food, which is like a semi-solid, will move to the last part of the large intestine, which is called as the rectum. This is the place where the food is stored. Undigested food in the form of feces is stored over here. So undigested food in the form of feces is stored in the rectum. And finally, when there's an urge to evacuate, then this anus, like through the anus, this undigested food is thrown out. The process of throwing out the undigested food out of the body is called as ingestion. Like I've already told you that at many places sphincter muscles are present. So there is sphincter muscle present again at the opening of the anus also. The sphincter muscle is a circular muscle. It is an involuntary muscle. So normally the sphincter muscle which is present over here will be present in a contracted condition. So when there is an urge to evacuate or to throw the food, undigested food or the feces, the sphincter will relax, create an opening, the anus will open, and the undigested food is finally thrown out of the body. So this is about how this nutrition process occurs in the human beings. Okay, so food is first ingested, this first ingestion of food In the mouth, I have told you that the food is both physical and chemical digestion occurs over here. Physical digestion is through chewing, and chemical digestion is by the action of salivary amylase. Then the esophagus, through the esophagus by peristalsis, food reaches the stomach. In the stomach, the gastric juices mix up with the food, where the pepsin partially digests the proteins, and then the food goes into the large next part is the small intestine, where bile and the pancreatic juice act, and then finally the complete digestion occurs in the small intestine, the second part of the small intestine known as jejunum, and then finally the absorption of food occurs in the ileum with the help of those villi. I have told you what are villi. So with the help of villi they absorb, okay, and then finally the undigested food moves into the large intestine, where absorption of water occurs, and then the undigested food is temporarily, the semi-solid food, undigested food that's called as feces, is temporarily stored in rectum and then finally thrown out through the anus. So that's about how nutrition in human beings. Thank you.